Hi everyone, it's James here. Welcome to another video. So this is going to be another vinyl finds video. A while ago I think my last vinyl finds video was an Oxfam one, I think it was, and I said I was going to come back and show some more finds from that charity shop, so that's what I'll do today. But I'm going to mix it up with some records from elsewhere as well, but I'll explain as we go. Got a few quite nice things to show you, so let's crack on with it. The first one actually is a new record, and this was an online purchase. I think this is a reissue of Small Faces Ogden's Nut Gone Flake, which I've been meaning to buy for literally years. This was, I don't remember now where I picked this up. I know I was talking to Lloyd Boone about it here on YouTube, and I think it's his favourite album of all time. And the Small Faces, I have a CD best of by them, and that's really all I've got. So I thought it was about time I picked this up. I'm not going to get all the various inserts out to show you because there's quite a lot of things stuffed into the jacket, but it's a nice sounding reissue, a couple of sound issues, as is often the case with these kind of vinyl reissues, you know, a few cracks and pops here and there, but nothing too much really. I've given it a clean and I'll probably give it another one at some point, but so that was nice to get into the collection at long last. So yeah, that's the Small Faces and Ogden's Nut Gone Flake, bit of a 60s site classic. So back to onto the second-hand stuff now. The first one, I picked this up from my local antiques place, which has gone right down the pan. My antiques place used to have a really good record store in it, and then the guy up sticks and disappeared, so he's no longer there, so you have to really ferret around now for anything interesting. This record I'd seen in the racks in a different stall in there some time ago, but I'd left it behind because I thought it looked a bit dog-eared, but I looked at it again and it's not too bad, so I grabbed it. This is Climax Blues Band and Sense of Direction. So this bunch are not that easy to collect really. Their stuff does pop up once in a blue moon, but you don't see them that often, and they're a band that I really like. Pete Haycock, the guitarist, the late Pete Haycock from the West Midlands, great slide guitar player, no longer with us unfortunately, but they've got quite a big discography. And where's Pete? That's Pete there. And their stuff, they're not a straight blues band despite the title. They're kind of more R&B, I suppose, a bit funky in places, a bit jazzy, a bit soulful. They covered quite a few different bases. They were managed by Miles Copeland, who later went on to manage the Police, and that was before the new wave era broke really. They sacked him for some reason. I can't quite remember the story, but they sacked Miles Copeland even though he'd been fairly pivotal in their career, but they got rid of him. That was around about 1975, 76, and then after that Copeland got into the punk scene, so he prospered in the end. Anyway, that was quite a nice pickup. I think it was only a fiver. Okay, so onto the Oxfam stuff. Now, I think it was in my last Oxfam video I mentioned, I showed a couple of Cars records. I think it was the third and the fourth album, which I'd found in the racks down at Oxfam going cheap, and I mentioned in the video how nice it would have been had the other two, the first two records been there as well. And then maybe a couple of weeks after I made that video I went down to Oxfam, and sure enough what was in the racks but the first two Cars records. Now I don't know whether these were just in the back room waiting to be put on display when I picked up the other two, or if they'd been brought in the intermediate time, but it was really nice to grab them, really nice condition. They are in very similar condition to the other two, which is making me think maybe they were from the same collection, and it's just that the third and the fourth record had been put out, and these first two hadn't been. But anyway, now I have the set. I think I mentioned in my previous video I'm not that bothered about getting Heartbeat City on vinyl, because I'm not that keen on the Mutt Lange production, but I quite like these first four Cars records, so they were nice things to find in Oxfam. I think they were about £2 each, so that was good. Now these next two records are really nice finds. I was walking through town on a separate occasion, and I think I saw one of them in the window and then went in and found the other one in the racks. It's the same artist, and these are not the kind of records you see in Oxfam every day of the week, so I was delighted to pick them up. So we've got the great B.B. King, and this is his album I Love You So, which comes from the 1960s. There's no date on the record. I did do some checking online, but I can't remember now what it was that I discovered. One of these two records is a reissue, but I can't remember which one it is or what it was a reissue of. Anyway, so this is on United Records, which is that's not a label I see all that often. Green. So yes, there was that one, which was beautiful thing to find. B.B. King is my favourite electric blues guitarist, really. I discovered him in the early 90s via his album There Is Always One More Time, I think it was called, in 1990. Love his sweet tone guitar playing, single string leads, etc, etc. This is the other one, My Kind of Blues. I forget which one was in the window and which one was inside the shop, but that really made my morning. I hadn't gone in to buy records, I'd gone in for some other reason, like chores or something. Ended up coming home with two beautiful 1960s B.B. King records, so there's an example of how record collecting can make your day. And this one, quite similar, a different day, but again it was in the window and I wasn't in town to buy records. Walked past the shop, saw it. This was, I think this was about £10. I can't remember how much the B.B. King records were. They weren't expensive, not as much as you'd think. This one was 10 quid though, but I did snap it up. This is Miles Davis, 7 Steps to Heaven, which is not a record I knew at all. I got lots of Miles Davis, mainly on CD. Got a few records, but mainly on CD. This is an early one, and it just wasn't one that I'd heard before, so that was really nice to pick up. Victor Feldman, Herbie Hancock on piano, George Coleman on tenor sax, Tony Williams on drums, and Ron Carter on bass, actually. And what was the date of this? Is it going to tell me? I suspect not. It's on Red CBS. So let's have a look and see if we've got a date on here. If there is one, I can't see it, but it's quite an early record anyway, and it's beautiful. It's got Basin Street Blues on it. Really made my morning to pick this up. Miles's trumpet is largely muted on this record. It's quite a mellow sound overall, but what I liked about this particular copy is that there's a sticker on here, or a stamp. It says Lancaster and Morecambe Further College Library. So this is from my local FE college, Further Education College, just up the road, back in the day when they must have had a record library containing jazz records. And that is quite a thing to think about, because the idea nowadays of that kind of place having a library of records of any kind would be ridiculous, obviously, or to have a CD library or anything like that. But yeah, back in those days, the college had a library where students could toddle off in between their lectures for whatever they were doing, car mechanics or whatever, and pick up a copy of Miles Davis, 7 Steps to Heaven. So a great thing to find, a local record from a local library from back in the day, hanging in the window in Oxfam and now in my collection. So hurrah for that, Miles Davis. And this one again was Oxfam, and this was very cheap actually. Really pleased to find this. Never picked up anything by this lot before. A vocal harmony group from South Africa, Ladysmith, Black Mambazo, who achieved national fame when they appeared on Paul Simon's Graceland album back in '86, was it? To a fair bit of controversy, I suppose. There was a bit of a history to that record, but their sound is deeply embedded in my musical brain, really, thanks to the Graceland album. I can still remember hearing that record for the first time on Christmas Day, and just lovely, warm, mellifluous, close harmony singing from South Africa. I've listened to this record quite a few times since buying it. It's very gentle, very lulling, and it was dead cheap. It's on Warner's. So yeah, delighted to find that. Don't find African music very often. Ladysmith, Black Mambazo, and I didn't say the name, did I? Shaka Zulu from 1987, I think. So quite similar time to the Graceland record. Not sure if it came out before or after Graceland. Certainly that album put them on the map in a big way. Right, the final few records I'm going to show today are from Heightside Records, my local market traders. Now, I hadn't been down there for many weeks, and really because I'm trying to stop buying so many records and try and save on shelf space. But I decided to go down, and I think it had literally been about 6 weeks since I'd gone down there. And I felt a bit guilty because the previous time I'd gone down there, I'd spoken to Robin, one of the two guys that runs the stall, and I'd mentioned to him a particular record that I was looking for, and he said he thought he had a copy of it and he was going to put it to one side for me. Now I forgot he'd said that, and bless his heart, he'd kept it for me all those weeks waiting for me to come back. So thank you very much, Robin. A very well known record, but it's one that I lost from my collection many years ago when I was a student, or maybe in my post-student days. Houses of the Holy by Led Zepp. This is some kind of original 1970s British pressing. This is a record that I was really fond of back when I was a student, and this and Led Zepp 4 would be my two favourite Led Zepp records, and the song No Quarter on side 2 is my favourite Zepp song of all time. Absolutely love it. Been looking for a reissue or an original copy of this for so many years, and it's just really nice to get that back into the collection. So thank you, Robin, for keeping it for me, and I do apologise for keeping you waiting for 6 weeks or more, in fact, before I finally turned up to get it. And then coincidentally I found another record that day which is also a replacement copy for a record which I lost. Now this one is quite mysterious because I'm certain I've not lent it to anybody, because I had it here in this house a few years ago. Maybe it's been misfiled on the shelf. I have ransacked my collection looking for it, but I've never found it. So it's one of those records which somehow teleported out of my life in very mysterious circumstances. Been after a copy of it since then, maybe about 2 or 3 years. Finally found this really nice copy of the Talking Heads' final album, I think. This is Naked. And I've seen some copies of it over the years which have been a bit battered, not in great condition, but this one is really nice and glossy, as you can see. A really good record, actually. I'd forgotten how much I liked this one. I don't think it's their best work, but it's definitely up there. Bit of an African vibe going on. No, there's quite a few African musicians on this record. Abdou Maboop on talking drum and congas. Yves Ndjok. Yeah, a fair bit of African stuff going on. Of course, it's post Brian Eno, so you don't have that that very dense Eno sound anymore. But it's still Talking Heads being quite adventurous. I think they did go out on a high note, and this contains one of my favourite songs by them, end of side 1, Nothing But Flowers. There's definitely a bit of an ecological theme to this record. That song is very interesting. I think it's about a guy who's bemoaning the fact that all his favourite urban haunts are basically disappearing under this dense foliage, yeah, I mean, David Byrne and the Talking Heads, they always find an interesting angle on things. So delighted to get that back into the collection. I suspect it probably is in my collection somewhere, but I've long given up trying to find it. This one was just a cheap and cheerful one from Heightside. I thought I'd grab a copy of Tomorrow Belongs to Me by the sensational Alex Harvey Band. Another record with a bit of an eco theme, I think, although it's fairly difficult to tease out. His lyrics were quite surreal, quite off the wall. So yeah, Alex Harvey, great. I think he was a Glaswegian, wasn't he? Came up in the kind of glam rock scene. He had his own following, big following in the UK. The band were famous for, well, at least one of them wore makeup on stage, and it was a harlequin, wasn't it? Great players, really great sound, and his records are quite common in the UK, but they're not often in great shape. This one is in really nice shape, so nice to grab that. And we'll finish with a really nice find, actually, an artist who I've been collecting for many years, but I find his records so infrequently I can barely say that I'm collecting him, because it really is one every 3 years or so. I try to only pick them up if they're in really good condition, and this one was. Now I think this is his 3rd album, I've got a feeling it is, and it's the great the great Irish guitarist Rory Gallagher and his album Against the Grain, with a great photo there of his very battered guitar, and it's really up close on the cover. You can see all the paint chipped there, and there's finger grease under the strings. It's a very honest picture, and seems to sum up his music really, that very kind of unvarnished, raw, very real kind of vibe that you get from his records. Tremendous record. Side 1 is stronger than side 2. There's a great song in side 1 called Souped Up Ford. So if you're looking to hear a blast of very, very heavy and raucous blues rock that'll blow the cobwebs off, then do go on YouTube or Spotify or whatever and check that one out. If you don't have the vinyl record, sounds better on vinyl, of course. But yeah, I think I've got 3 or 4 of Rory's records now. Plenty more to collect. But I'm trying to steer clear of the ones which are not in very good condition, and this one was in great nick, so I thought I'd grab it. So there we go, that's it for now. Now I do have some more finds. I've discovered a new record shop, and I will talk about that maybe in my next finds video, but I will do that hopefully in the not too distant future. Right, coming at 16 minutes actually, so I hope that's okay for everyone, and hope you enjoyed the selection. Leave me some comments and I'll speak to you soon.